Is your life a contradiction? It should be. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Next, on So What? Hi, I'm Chris Dorman, and welcome back to So What? This is our final podcast on the first Beatitude. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. I wanted to sort of summarize what we have looked at so far because this is just so important, and that without really understanding poverty of spirit, without cultivating it in our lives, without praying for it, we're really going to hurt ourself as we try to walk faithfully with Jesus. And so, first, what have we looked at? We've defined what poverty of spirit is. It's a sense, really, of who God is. As we know who God is, we see ourselves for what we really are. Helpless, hopeless, lost, completely desperate, incapable of saving ourselves. As Christians, poverty of spirit is that a sense of desperate need for Him, to see more of Him in our lives, an unquenchable thirst for relationship that grows stronger and stronger, that we never ever come to a place where we stop pursuing Him. Just as the beggar never stops begging for food because they always have to eat, we never stop coming for Him, chasing Him, pursuing Him, because we're desperate to strengthen our relationship with Him. My friends, poverty of spirit really is humility. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about seeing ourselves for what we really are. And last week we saw Christ's example and how God took on flesh, the ultimate act of humility, lived a perfect sinless life, died a criminal's death, all in utter, complete humility. We talked about how to cultivate humility in our own lives, how we've got to want God, how that's got to be important to us. But at the end of the day, don't ever forget that ultimately this is a work of the Holy Spirit indwelling you, okay? And that He has to do that work in you. And I can't explain this to you, my friends, but the scriptures say that God does this work, that He gets all the glory for this work, and yet we have an obligation to pursue Him, to prayerfully seek these things, and to strive to implement them in our lives. We have opportunities every day to demonstrate real, Holy Spirit, Christ-given humility. And you see, my friends, the genuine test of our spirituality is not how we act in church. It's how we interact with others. That's the true test of where our hearts really are. Remember, we looked at the parable of the sheep and the goats last week. Do you remember that? That really tells the world where we are. Is our first thought of others. Think of the parable of the Good Samaritan. Jesus said the greatest command is to love God and to love your neighbor as you love yourself. The Good Samaritan loved his neighbor as he loved himself. He treated his neighbor, he treated that beaten man on the side of the road as he himself would want to be treated if he was in that circumstance, my friends. Do you, as you go about your life, do you treat people that way? The way you yourself would want to be treated? A couple of weeks ago, Pastor Bob did a great podcast dealing with hateful speech and how this one person was the victim of Christians speaking in a really hateful, ugly way in a consistent manner. And he once again exhorted people to selfless, unconditional love. Well, my friends, you can't love unconditionally. You can't love selflessly if you're not humble. The problem is not a lack of unconditional love. The problem is a lack of humility. You see, my friends, without genuine humility, you will never see others as better than yourself, as Paul exhorts us in Philippians. You'll never put other people's needs before your own, because you will always be a little God in your own heart, in your own life. Without genuine humility, you will never be patient. You will never be kind. You will never be gentle. You will never be faithful. You will never exhibit the fruits of the Spirit. Do you lack unconditional love as you go about your daily life? My friends, it's because, most likely, you lack genuine humility. As we press on from here, as we look at mourning, as we look at meekness, as we look at hungering and thirsting after righteousness, as we look at making peace, as we look at being persecuted, my friends, it all starts here. It all starts with humility. Now, how many of you have ever been accused of being a hypocrite, of your life being a contradiction, of your life not matching what your Christian principles tell you it should be? Now, I want someone to say, someone in the world say, wow, your life is a contradiction. And I go, well, thank you. Thank you very much. What do I mean by that? To be a Christian, your life is a contradiction. Our world says to be happy, you've got to be boastful. You've got to be proud. You've got to be rich. You've got to be number one. You've got to be the leader. You've got to be in control. That's the antithesis of the Christian faith. Completely the opposite, a complete contradiction to the world. You want to be a contradiction. You want to be a contradiction. Do you want to be wise for Christ? Then you will be a fool in the eyes of the world. Do you want to be great in the kingdom of heaven? Then you must be a servant of all. Do you want to be number one? Then you must be a slave. Do you want to live? Then come and die. Come and die. That is the Christian life. Nothing short of death to self for the glory of Jesus Christ. Are you ready? It's not going to be easy. And if you've struggled in your Christian life, I just want to be happy, and yet you're not humble, you'll never be happy. Remember, Jesus says, you want to be happy? Here are the keys. They're in the Beatitudes. Happy are the humble. So my friends, be a contradiction. Contradict everything about this world system. Be loving. Be patient. Be kind. Be gentle. How? How? By being humble. By seeing others as better than yourselves. By putting others' needs before your own. By treating others how you yourself would want to be treated. By not looking at that speck in someone else's eye while you've got a plank in your own eye. You see, that's just pride, isn't it? My friends, the world does need to see unconditional love in the hearts of Christians, but my friends, you'll never ever see it. And you'll never ever be able to do it if you are not humble. The world is not dying from a lack of love from Christians, my friends. I really believe the root of all of this is pride. At the end of the day, we think we're better than others. Genuine poverty of spirit says you're not. It says you're a beggar. It says you're lost, you're hopeless, you're helpless. And that every good thing comes from something else, from someone else. Every good and perfect thing comes from where? It comes from God. What makes you different? Do you take credit for that? Can you claim credit for that? Paul says, no, of course not. Of course not. Glory, the glory is His. Give it to Him. Take your eyes off yourself. Put them on Jesus Christ. Pray for humility. And one other thing in closing, don't be discouraged. If, as we've looked at this, you're coming to see how much pride you have in your own life, and maybe like you've been a Christian for a long time, and maybe this has always been lurking there, and you've never really dealt with it, my friends, don't be discouraged. You're in very good company. Look at the disciples. They walked with Jesus. They ate with Jesus. They listened to His teachings. They saw the miracles for 3 years, and till the very end, what are they arguing? Who's going to be greatest? They didn't get it. So don't be discouraged if you don't either, okay? Because it's completely contrary to the world. Be a contradiction. Bring glory to Christ. Thank you for tuning in, my friends. And I'll talk to you next week.